Hello there, welcome into the show. We're at half-time of the European semi-finals. We're in the penultimate weekend of the Premier League title race. Lots to get into today, he says, hopefully, with Steve Nicol and Craig Burley on board. I'm Adrian Healy. We have a pan-European guest list, including Sid Lowe and Stuart Robson. There they are. Sid, I'm going to start with you and all the reaction, of course, to another super show from Lionel Messi. Messi, the star of the show, as Barcelona beat Liverpool 3-0. You know, we're used to the reaction around the world. Here we are, half a world away watching it, and the reaction is phenomenal. Just wondering what the sense is in Spain and your sense of the reaction domestically to his latest exploits.
I think in a way the reaction this time round focuses more on Messi's hyperactivity than just on his talent. Now, obviously, everybody knows about Messi's talent. Everybody knows, for example, that he can score extraordinary goals and has scored an enormous amount. I think that's his 7th free kick this season, although this one was that little bit further out. But I think the thing that stood this apart from other Messi performances was that hyperactivity, was the number of challenges he went into. I think the figure was 16 tackles that he won over the course of the game, or duels that he won over the course of the game. That sense that he has an enormous desire to win this competition. And listening to his teammates after the game, one of the things that they really highlighted was this idea that if Messi goes, we follow. That Messi led in terms of aggression, in terms of intensity, as well as in terms of football as you anticipate. And of course, this all goes back to the start of the season when Messi very publicly made a point of saying, this year, the priority is the Champions League.
I enjoyed your story in The Guardian, the English newspaper this morning, including that quote from the Barcelona president, Sid, where he said, you know, we live with a genius as if it's normal. Is that part of the reaction now in Spain?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And you know, as he was saying, remember that Messi's been here since he was 13. Most of the people at the club know him. He knows most of the people at the club. He's been here a very long time, and we've kind of become used to this. But I think it's more than just the club itself. You know, that what Messi has done, and this is true of all of us, and it's true of journalists as well, is he's normalised the extraordinary. You know, he's made it become relatively routine, and we often say, don't we, when a player that's not so famous scores a great goal, we say, well, if so-and-so famous player had scored that, we'd be watching this endlessly. And actually, I think with Messi, certainly within Spain, it works the other way around. Messi scores a great goal, and it's kind of, well, that's what he does, and you move on. And I think in a way, Messi has become almost a victim of his own success, because I think he's made the extraordinary so routine that when he scores a great goal, it's just, you know, it's just normal, and it's the old kind of news idea, isn't it? Of man bites dog. The man gets bitten by dog. It's just normal. Messi scores a goal. It's just normal. Man bites the dog back. Then it's not normal. And in Messi's case, scoring goals just isn't that story. This time round, as I say, it was different because we saw things like the slide tackles, because we saw the aggression, because we saw the kind of the slightly hyperactive nature of Leo Messi, the amount of ground that he covered, and then actually, by the way, also that he then spoke after the game, as he's been doing quite a lot this season, when he's the first captain for the first time in his Barcelona career. And there is a real sense of Messi becoming a leader now. Not just leading because he's a good player and everyone follows him, but leading because he's actually taking on that responsibility in a way that he previously didn't do. And of course, last year the captain was Andres Iniesta. Before that, it was Xavi Hernandez. Before that, it was Carlos Puyol. And this is the first season in which that armband is worn by Messi in every game. And so perhaps that makes a difference. But I think it's been seen more as a shift in personality and/or character than necessarily just the fact that he's wearing the armband.
Well, can Liverpool bite back? There's going to be several big bites that they take. 10-1 outsiders.
To be fair, I've never seen a man try to bite a dog, but I'd like to see it.
It's worth
particularly a big one.
Barcelona 1-20.
I know a few that are daft enough,
as you might expect. James Milner today, Steve, is saying Liverpool's history and pedigree of European comebacks gives them a chance. Is that
I think hope's the word.
Hope, rather
gives
than
them hope.
Chance. Yeah.
Yes, but again, unfortunately, they're playing against a team that is a good team, but they have a guy called Messi, and that is where the hope begins to diminish as well. You know, it would be an absolute miracle if Liverpool were to knock Barcelona out of this Champions League, being 3-0 down. I think it would be bigger than when Barcelona beat PSG.
Way beyond the Istanbul miracle, way beyond that? I mean, or are we talking something similar here?
No, that was a final. That's different. That's different. Because it's the final, it's different. But
well, Roma did do it last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not it's improbable but not impossible is the way I would put it. Look, I said after the game, the way Liverpool will try and sell this to their within the team, within the dressing room, the way the players and the coaches and Klopp will try and sell it is we can have one of the most famous nights under the lights at Anfield, and there have been many. But that's how you have to. If you want to try and stay positive, that's what you have to do. You've got to talk about early goals. You've got to talk about pressurising them. You've got to talk about Messi having an off night, which is unlikely. But you've got to try and sell it within your squad as that kind of profile to try and give yourself a little bit of hope that the fans turn up and, you know, how many Anfield halls now, and that they absolutely hope that there's going to be an early goal goes Liverpool's way, and all of a sudden they can put a bit of pressure on.
I think, unfortunately for Liverpool, those types of miracles we're talking about, Barcelona's been involved in both sides of the story.
Yeah.
You know.
Coming back against PSG. Yeah.
And then, so if I'm Valverde, the only thing I'm talking about before the game is, right, you know how it can go. It can go that way or it can go that way. And that will keep them on their toes, no question.
Just to go back to Messi, just really briefly, is because we've eulogised about him and put it into words fantastically well there, is that he's got to a stage where when you watch a big game, or any game, but particularly a big game when Messi's playing, if he doesn't do something that is out of this world, you kind of come away disappointed.
Yeah.
Not Stevie, because it was Liverpool. But just in general, if he doesn't... You're just so used to him doing things that no other player literally can do, that when he doesn't do it, you come away and think, well, that was a bit average tonight.
Do you know the amazing, do you know the amazing thing is, you can count on one hand the amount of times you actually think that way. I mean, this guy holds himself to an incredible standard.
By the way, I didn't like the rolling about, by the way. The only thing I didn't like was the rolling about with the stupid... It was a stupid challenge from Milner on the sideline, but it was almost Neymar-esque the way he was rolling around, so I didn't... That was just...
Stuart, somewhere between improbable and impossible is what Liverpool's task appears to be at Anfield. How would you set about this task if you were them, if you were Jurgen Klopp?
Well, there was aspects of the game that I think would encourage Liverpool. They played quite well in the game, but their pressing worked quite well, and it's Barcelona's to lose. If Barcelona try and play out from the back and don't do it particularly well in the early stages of the game, Liverpool win it back, score a goal, that will get the crowd going. That's the only way I can see Liverpool winning. If Barcelona get their tactics wrong, play too many balls into midfield when they're tightly marked, and Liverpool win back possession in good areas. That's the only way I can see Liverpool getting a winner in this game by the 3 goals they need.
Sticking with you, Stuart, because I know you commentated on the first leg of this game, Ajax and Spurs. Not quite as daunting a prospect for Spurs, but still got to overturn a first-leg deficit. Can they do it in Amsterdam?
Well, if you watch the first 35 minutes of that game between Ajax and Spurs, or Spurs and Ajax, there's absolutely no hope for Spurs. Ajax movement, their technical ability, their game understanding, their tactical understanding was far too good for Spurs. And it was only when Spurs went long into Llorente and started to get people around the knockdowns that they looked as though they were going to get back in the game. I can't see Spurs getting a victory here. Ajax will win the game, I think, quite comfortably.
Let's turn our attention to the title race. Of course, Liverpool start the action on Saturday. They travel to Newcastle. City won't be in action until Monday with that home game against Leicester City. 7-2 you can get on Liverpool, 1-5 on. So City, the prohibitive favourites. Stevie, sometimes coming out of big European nights can be awkward in testing, especially something like Liverpool have just gone through. Does that apply in this case, in the penultimate weekend of a title race?
Listen, if the title race was already tied up, then it might apply. I can't, for me, see any Liverpool player doing anything other than giving 100%.
Right.
You know, you're going for a Premier League title. Liverpool haven't won it for 29 years. There's no reason not to get after it. And I think more importantly, the manager, Klopp, I mean, he's about the most positive coach you'll ever get. And so the only thing he'll be drumming into them is, don't be feeling sorry for yourself. You've got a Premier League title there to be won. Go out and win it.
Stuart, is this awkward for Liverpool, despite that beacon of positivity Stevie was talking about?
I don't think so. I think Benitez will go back to type. He would defend deeply and try and play on the counter-attack. And I think Liverpool would dominate the game and eventually they would get their goals. I can't see this being a problem for Liverpool. They played well the other night, so they're not that sorry for themselves. They get a good result here.
And then there'll be a 48-hour wait, Craig, until Manchester City play Leicester City. No De Bruyne, it appears. Fernandinho in question. Any trouble at all?
Well, there's always potential trouble. I mean, you know, City, amongst other things, lost at Crystal Palace at home and it wasn't expected. They lost at Newcastle away, ironically, when it wasn't expected. The one thing Leicester will do, certainly under Brendan Rodgers, is they'll play an open game. They won't go to the Etihad to sit in, like most of the teams do out with the top ones. And sometimes that can make it difficult for City, not all the times, when teams sit in and get everybody behind the ball. I don't see Leicester doing that, which I think plays into City's hands because it becomes a game of football. Now, you've got to be careful of Vardy's pace over the top because that's been a bit of an Achilles heel for City in recent weeks. Tottenham gave them all sorts of problems with early balls in behind. But apart from that, if they can make sure Vardy's pace is nullified, they'll get time and space to play, and there's no better team in the league at doing it.
Brendan Rodgers going to do his old team a favour, isn't he?
I hope so.
We will see.
Don't see it, though.
He's got Jurgen Klopp living in his house in Liverpool, by the way. If you ever miss an edition of the show, our podcast version available on iTunes. Now, the constantly shifting sands of the race for the Champions League spots in the Premier League. Who is going to finish top four? It is still a very murky picture. As you can see, Spurs the outright favourites. Chelsea favourites to join them. Arsenal and Manchester United on the outside looking in at the moment. You see the fixtures they have left, including this weekend. Stuart, I know it's been a while since you were with us. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, you were last with us, and at that point, it looked a lot rosier for Arsenal. It's all crumbled away in the league for them since then. Do you still hold out hope for their ability to finish in the top four?
Not really. It looks as though that Unai Emery is pinning everything on the Europa League. The last three performances away from home have been absolutely shocking. And, well, one of them was at home against Crystal Palace. Defensively, the same old things we saw under Arsene Wenger are beginning to show again under Unai Emery. Lack of organisation, lack of determination. The goal against Valencia, I know it wasn't in the league, but in midweek, lack of determination, lack of organisation. The defenders seem nervous and they're not quite sure what they're supposed to be doing. Does that mean there's not enough work going on the training ground? Are the players not good enough? There's a combination of everything, but also a lack of desire to defend when they really need to. That's why I would say Chelsea are now favourites to get that fourth position.
Sid, I want to bring you in on the Arsenal-Valencia Europa League tie. What was the perspective in Spain on that result for Valencia?
Fundamentally, it's a very disappointing one, and also surprising insofar as Marcelino went for a five-man defence, which they haven't done all season. And one of the things that Valencia have done really well this year, even during those dark months when it wasn't working for them, was defend. You know, the problems that they had, the reason they were so far off the Champions League place wasn't because they were playing poorly. It was because they weren't getting goals. So they were racking up enormous numbers of draws. I think it's 16 draws this season for Valencia. You know, they've only been beaten 3 times all season. So it was really quite baffling to see them change the defensive structure, which is something that, in theory at least, there was nothing wrong with. The sense now is that they have a chance in the second leg and that it should be different and that Mestalla will play a part and that Valencia can go for Arsenal. But actually, in truth, there's not a huge amount of optimism left now.
So Arsenal saving their best displays in Jekyll and Hyde manner for the Europa League. Looking at the top 4 challenges this weekend, guys, where are the banana skins? Any slip-ups? Chelsea at home to Watford, Arsenal at home to Brighton, Spurs have to go to Bournemouth. Who's dropping points? They've all been dropping points recently.
Well, I would say the toughest game there is probably Chelsea at home to Watford. You know, a team that's in the FA Cup final that have been particularly strong this year, have a big physical side about them, have got a bit of flair, and Delafeo's been having a great season. 2 big strong boys in the middle of the park, and we know Chelsea are not. You know, Chelsea, I think I agree with Robbo. I think they will probably get the top 4, but it's by kind of default because the others have been poor. Chelsea haven't been a very good side this year. Very inconsistent, poor defensively, too slow in possession, and I think that's the toughest game out of all the teams is Watford at home.
Tougher than Spurs, I'm going to go to Bournemouth. I know Bournemouth are on.
Bournemouth have been shipping a lot of goals.
Yeah. You see it that way too? Chelsea have the toughest side? I mean, I think we're assuming Manchester United are going to win both their remaining games.
I kind of agree with Craig. I think Chelsea get in because the other 2, Arsenal and Manchester United, you just don't know what you're going to get. You absolutely
Even with
don't.
United's games, they look so winnable, those last 2 games. for Man United.
Yeah, but even if they win, but Chelsea could still afford to look. Well, depending on what Arsenal do, Chelsea can still afford to lose a game.
Yeah.
And we'll pick up 3 points. And barring there's a huge, change in the goal difference, then that's not really going to change much. Even if United were to win 2 games, they'd have to win by a bag full of goals to change that goal difference.
If you were United and you looked at your fixture list at the start of the season and went, I'll tell you what, we're finishing with Huddersfield and Cardiff City. Yes, please. But because of the way the year's gone and the way they're playing right now, we're actually not sure whether they're going to win these games. That tells you what kind of state Man United are in. That you can't back them to win those 2 supposedly straightforward wins.
Yeah. Absolutely extraordinary, something we wouldn't have dreamt of saying 5 or 6 weeks ago. Extra Time is the place where all your questions get answered. You can see it every day on our YouTube channel. Well, in amongst all the football this week, Sid, interesting story in La Parisienne in France about the Qatari owners of PSG wanting to slash their spending and thus potentially the availability of Messi's Neymar and Mbappe. Did that get any play at all in Spain? And of course, Real Madrid have to be interested in this situation, don't they?
Well, not just Real Madrid, Barcelona as well. Those 2 clubs will always be interested in the possibility of Paris Saint-Germain being put in a position where both Neymar and Mbappe were on the market. And perhaps even not just those 2, perhaps other players as well. I must confess, my reading of this, when I saw this story that suggested that the Qatari owners felt like they'd been not shown enough respect, like they felt like the team wasn't doing particularly well and they wanted to walk away. My interpretation of this, and this is seen from the outside, not seen from the inside, was very much a kind of, this just looks like a fit to me. This just looks like they're in a bit of a huff, that they're complaining that people aren't respecting them. And it was almost a kind of an attempt to say, come on, show us some respect or we'll walk away. And then what are you going to do? Now, obviously, a lot of people would say, well, good riddance. Yeah. But I suspect that people who are Paris Saint-Germain fans wouldn't, and I suspect that big chunks of the organisation of the French League, if not the actual rest of the French League, would probably not really want them to take their money away with them. And as you say, from a point of view of Spain, and I imagine this is true of the Premier League teams as well, if this meant that Mbappe in particular, I think even more than Neymar, were available at a cheaper price, then of course there would be interest.
Yeah, it seems like everyone else is having all the fun at the moment, not PSG. Not so much fun for Philippe Coutinho, Sid. I know you were there. The reaction that greeted his subbing out and Dembele coming in was a clear message from the Barcelona fans against Liverpool. Do you read anything more into his future?
No, I think in a way that one of the most interesting things about this wasn't just the response from the fans, because you're right, there was some whistling. There were a couple of moments when he lost the ball and there was some whistling, but I don't think it was unanimous by any means. But I think the most significant thing about it wasn't so much the message from them, it was the message from Messi. When Barcelona scored the second goal, Messi stood and waggled his finger and then did a clapping gesture, a very ostensive clapping gesture to say, you must support people. At the end of the game, pitch side, Messi was asked, and he's talking a lot more this year as captain, Messi was asked what that gesture was about. Was it about Coutinho? And he said yes. He said, look, we said at the start of the season, and we're now at that stage of the season that's decisive when we're playing for the trophies that we really, really want. We said then, and we'll say it again now, if we are going to do this, we have to do this together. And the phrase he used then was ugly. It is ugly to see a teammate treated like this. And of course, if Barcelona fans are going to listen to Messi, and Luis Suarez had said this a few days earlier, they're going to support Coutinho now. If they don't, Coutinho will be irritated, he will feel unhappy. But that's not necessarily to say that this precipitates a departure. And I think, as I say, the most interesting part about this, or the most relevant part about it, was the strength of Messi's message to the fans.
Interesting. They have to be patient, don't they, Stevie? You've seen this before with other players.
It's a disgrace.
Yeah.
You get in the Champions League semi-final and you're booing and whistling at one of your players. They're not real supporters. They're not.
Just some players always seem to attract
you're
attention, don't they?
You're winning the league. You're in that Champions League. You're 1 foot in the Champions League final, as Stevie said. And somebody's not having the best of season when you know, and the Barcelona fans will know, that the guy is a talented player. So whistling and booing and giving him the bird is only going to do one thing, and is destroy his confidence even more.
Yeah, indeed. Coutinho gets to go back to Liverpool, of course, for the second leg of that Champions League semi-final. In case you haven't seen it, our YouTube page, it contains all the ESPN FC content. All right, the last extra time of the week, the last one before tomorrow's extra time, which will be the first one of next week, I think. The week starts on Saturday. Did you follow that?
No.
Oh,
I love how you preface it. There was I think.
My producer Louise was just reminding me we have some interesting video actually of you before we get to the questions.
This is brilliant. Although,
Hey, do you want to preface what it was? It was a Thursday night outing.
Yes, well, Alexis is actually going to London, so we went for a little drinky poo, a squad of us, and I was taking the mickey here because they were giving prizes out. Oh. And what I was, I stood.
Look at them all laughing at you. Look.
I stood on Lizzie's coat, and then my legs got caught up in it, and that's why I ended up going down. Right? This is great fun.
I mean, there was no dive involved at all. Then.
Oh no,
This was
no,
not
that was
for
no Renault
this was
diving.
not for comedic effect. This was
No, that was it. It was
No,
an
this is-
accident.
this was the full-on.
Oh,
trip.
no,
And I was sober at the time, by the way.
I was quite impressed by the turn of pace you were round the corner.
I was shocked about it up myself.
The thing is, just before he fell, I mean, you watch that video. He's looking really proud of himself. He's great, laughing at everybody, and everybody's laughing at him. Then down.
Yeah. That was the farewell do for Alexis Nunez, by the way, who's off to London. You'll still see her on the show. In fact, you'll probably see her more on the show, but she'll be in London.
She's moving to the big smoke.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
yeah.
We have.
She'll get a lot for her buck there when she tries to get a house.
We have Stuart Robson with us, who's in London. Stuart, I'll start this with you. Tim wants to know, who is your Premier League manager of the season outside of the top six?
You'd have to go with the Watford manager, Javi Gracia. I think he's done a fantastic job. They're in the cup final. They've been difficult to play against. Most managers only last a season at Watford. He's lasted a bit longer than that. He's done very well. I'll have him as manager of the season in the Premier League.
I think Benitez has done well again.
Yeah.
With an owner who seemingly has been attempting to sell the club for a while, but there's not been a lot budget-wise. In fact, Shaka Hislop was his mate sent him something the other night that the budget the salary budget when they were in the Championship was almost double
Yeah.
what it is now.
Yeah.
When they got promoted again, I mean, they were paying. I mean, obviously, it was maybe a little bit from when they got relegated, but it was almost like 80 odd million, and now it was less than half that now.
Yeah.
So they're spending less in the Premier League to survive. I agree with Robbo. You know, the Watford manager's been great,
Yeah.
but I think you could throw Benitez's hat in there for a job very well done.
How about Nuno, your Wolves man, has done pretty well as well. Nuno De Santis.
Yep.
They're in the top six, aren't they?
Not quite.
7.
Yeah.
They're 7.
Yeah, they're definitely not in the top six.
So if it's outside the top 6, I was going to say Benitez.
Yeah.
Agree with Craig. But you have to go with Nuno.
Yeah.
I mean, not just the fact that they're sitting where they are, but the way they play the game.
They just came up. They just promoted.
You know, if you're going to decide between Rafa and Nuno, then you got to go for Nuno because of the way they play. You know, Rafa's sitting tight and trying to break, whereas Nuno's teams are going out and attacking.
Yeah. Sid, let's bring you in first on the next one. There'll be no shortage of backstories, obviously, if we get a Barcelona-Ajax Champions League final. This probably won't be... Well, maybe it will be one of them. Jacob wants to know, will Frankie de Jong play if that is the final?
Yeah, of course he'll play. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Barcelona are also trying to bring in De Ligt as well. So it could well be that there's 2 Ajax players playing against Barcelona if, of course, both of them get to the final, and if then Barcelona are able to close off that signing of De Ligt. But yeah, of course, Frankie de Jong will play. I wonder if he might be a little bit careful about what he says in the build-up to it and what he says coming out of it, and maybe tries to keep out of the way of the media. But on the pitch, I don't expect to see anything different.
All he's got to do is look at, and we talked about this the other day, all these players have to do is look at the attitude and application against his old team of Luis Suarez. Now, love him or hate him, whatever it is, I love watching the guy play.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have known he'd ever pulled a Liverpool jersey on because he kicked and he harried and he was a nuisance and he scored and he celebrated. Because he's now employed and paid big bucks to do a job in Spain. And you know, ultimately that's what De Jong will do. But at this moment in time, he's employed to do a job for Ajax. It's quite simple, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Sedi. Yeah, be a bit careful about maybe digging Barcelona in the ribs before the game when you know you've got to go there, but I don't think he'll do that.
Yeah. Robbo, if that is the final, you saw Ajax this week. Is it going to be some game? Can Ajax live with Barcelona?
Well, they can. They've done it against Spurs. They've done it against Juventus. They've done it against Real Madrid. I saw them in the early rounds against Dinamo Kiev, I think it was, when they had to qualify, and they looked at an ordinary side, an OK side. In the early part of the season, they looked at a decent side. They've got better and better, and those three young players, the two you've mentioned and Donny van der Beek, are going to be top stars over the next few years. Outstanding players. They can cause Barcelona a problem.
Hope you get better, Robbo.
Yeah. Robbo's suffering a bit. He was, picked up a bug, probably on a late night.
Well, it deserves him, right? He went on a bloody holiday and the season's still on. You're taking the mickey. Even though he's here to work.
Hey, he's a hard-working man. He has to,
he is.
get his
hardest
rest
working man
somewhere.
in
Picked up a bug. That's the throat of a couple of late nights out. That's what that is.
It is.
That's an Essex bug. That's what that is.
That's a Sauvignon Blanc throat if I've ever seen one or heard one.
Sid, Robert, going back to the subject of managers, Robert wants to know who Sid thinks should be the manager of the year in La Liga.
Obviously, if Barcelona were to win the treble, then a lot of people will be looking at Ernesto Valverde. But I must say, I think this is a very, very clear choice, and I think it's Pepe Bordalas, the Getafe manager. This is a guy who took over at Getafe when they're in danger of relegation from the second division down to the second division B, which is effectively a regionalised league. He took them up to the first division. He's now got them in fourth place, and Sevilla have been beaten tonight. So there's a very strong chance now that Getafe get into the Champions League. The last Getafe game I was at, I've been going pretty much all season, their starting 11 cost less than 12 million euros. Now, this is a team with a budget basically a 16th the size of Real Madrid or Barcelona, and they could well be going to the Champions League. It's an extraordinary achievement. It's true they're not always that pretty to watch. It's true that they can be pretty nasty at times, but he's done an absolutely fantastic job.
We can't finish. We cannot. I don't know if we're finished. Have we finished extra time?
No, we got one more.
Oh, we got one more. Right. Wait, that can wait. It just Sid has to tell us. Sid has to tell the viewer his car story.
Right.
From this week.
His car.
But he don't tell us the big. Don't tell us the version you told us because we've all got homes to go to. Try and summarise it. Summarise it for us.
Well, let's summarise it. I'll summarise it very, very quickly then. I left the house to come here, couldn't find the car. Took me about 10 minutes to work out that 4 days ago I left it parked somewhere else. It was a little bit of a mess. I got to the point where I was messaging people, where's the car? Where's the car? Don't know. Thought it might have been stolen. Then, of course, thought about what my car is, how bad it is, and thought, of course it hasn't been stolen.
But how can you not have a car for 4 days or 3 or 4 days and not notice? I can't.
Because I've been in Barcelona. I've been in Barcelona for 4 days, so I drove it just before I went and got on the train to Barcelona. Obviously, I was there for the Barca-Liverpool game. Got back. I was so tired when I got back there. I went straight from the station to home in a taxi instead of going to pick up the car, and I'd completely forgotten about it.
We're hearing reports it might actually be parked in Getafe, Sid. That's where you'll find it.
That smells of another night out.
It does,
along with
doesn't it?
Robbo.
Yeah.
I was so tired, I forgot all about it.
I really wish I had that excuse. I mean, if at least I'd had a good night out, it would have been worth it. But it wasn't.
Good stuff, Sid.
Do you know when you come home in a train and you get in a taxi and not in your car? It only means one thing. That you are being...
all the time.
And I presume they've got drinks trolleys on Spanish trains like everywhere else. And it sounds to me as if that was getting absolutely battered. That's what that sounds like.
You may be correct, sir.
Well, it should. If not, it should have been.
Yeah.
Because that's what we'd have been doing.
Correct.
Paolo, finally, on the spot, can we ask Craig Burley for another uninteresting stat? Apparently, you have a track record.
Come up with a couple of bellows recently.
Already this week. Well, this week has been the week of.
Well, yeah.
uninteresting
If Tottenham,
stats.
the stat was if Tottenham in a two-legged European tie, Tottenham have never gone through when they've lost the first leg at home, which is very uninteresting. Which is why I used it.
Okay.
And then, actually, this one came from our producer Pete the other night. Was only Raul.
Who?
Help me out here.
Raul.
Raul.
Real Madrid.
Raul has scored against more Champions League teams than Messi. Raul with 33 goals against different teams. Messi with 32.
Hey, give us that one you came out with a wee while ago about the people on Twitter.
All right, yeah.
This is
well,
a
that's
belter.
not a start. It's a fact. When you're getting annoyed on Twitter...
Well, stats are facts.
All right, OK. When you're getting annoyed on Twitter and people are like winding you up, well, no, that don't bother, it doesn't bother me. But if people are getting annoyed, right, and you think this is so important and everybody's watching and listening to it and you're under pressure, remember there are 7.4 billion people in the globe that have no idea what the hell's going on that platform. Because there's 7.4 billion people in the world, roughly, and only 3...
So you're saying most people in the world are still oblivious?
340 million people on Twitter. So most of the world are oblivious to all the boneheads on Twitter
that is
talking nonsense.
Exactly the sort of stat that Paolo was hoping to extract.
There you go.
So we got there. Thank
Nice
you.
start up.
I quite liked that one.
Yeah, more of those to come on tomorrow's show, perhaps, in the aftermath.
No,